This is Captain Ginyu of the Ginyu Force with a special message.
You!
Shine!
Subscribe
to
Geek 101.
So we've got a very interesting new interview with Dragon Ball Daima Chief Supervisor Katsuyoshi Nakatsuru, the same guy who created Super Saiyan 4, worked on OG Dragon Ball Z, GT, the dude's been around forever, and they go into like his past working on Dragon Ball, but we've got some interesting new reveals from Nakatsuru that confirm a lot of suspicions about Super Saiyan 4 in Daima and Toriyama's place as far as designing the characters go when it comes to what he did versus what Nakatsuru did. You know, Toriyama and Nakatsuru working together to create Daima. So we're going to go ahead and get to some of the Dragon Ball Daima stuff. Some of the interview, it's a good interview. I'll leave a link down below for you to check out the entire thing. It was done by DB Times, which is a French outlet, because Nakatsuru and Kubota, who is the supervisor and director of Superhero, were both at a convention in France recently. I wish they would come here. And they signed a bunch of stuff and did custom art. And I'm sure it was a pleasure for fans to meet these two Dragon Ball legends. But I want to get to the Dragon Ball Daima story and his involvement in it. So first and foremost, right here. So again, I want to thank Venixis for putting this translation out. They ask him, what are the new character designs you created for Daima, and will we ever get to see them? He's talking about the stuff that he created, not just the stuff Toriyama made. And he says, indeed, while this time quite a few main characters have been turned back into children, and for them I created many drafts for their rejuvenated appearances. They appear in the anime almost as they were in the drafts without too many changes. So the original drafts of the kid versions of Goku, Vegeta, Piccolo, etc., Nakatsuru did them, and I guess Toriyama approved them, and he says not without many changes. So I guess it's basically the fact that Toriyama didn't just draw them from scratch. He just checked off on Nakatsuru's work. This is one of the few times, well, not one of the few times, one of the few times in decades that Nakatsuru's gotten to work with Toriyama on a project. You know, he was gone for a while, Nakatsuru that is, and they worked together a lot on some stuff way back in the day, but now, you know, there's a mutual respect there. And because of that, it looks like Toriyama checked off on a lot of his work. Now, Super Saiyan 4. This is, people have been asking about this. He's asked, did you also design the Super Saiyan 4 for Dragon Ball Daima? Right? This is the reveal here. No, this time in Daima, it was Toriyama Sensei who also designed Super Saiyan 4. He drew it in a way that made it the Super Saiyan 4 of Daima. So that, I think a lot of folks were a bit confused. Nakatsuru designed the original Super Saiyan 4, the one from GT. This one, Toriyama went in and just sort of did his version, changing the hair color, changing where the fur goes. It doesn't go all the way up to the wrist. And he also presumably designed the kid version and the adult version and chose to go with the red hair, the magenta hair, to make it different. Now, I have been saying for quite some time now, because I saw internal Toei documents going back to last summer where Super Saiyan 4 was called Super Saiyan 4. And there's people who were, no, it's not called that. It's Super Saiyan 4. And here it's confirmed it's the Super Saiyan 4 of Daima. So in the future, when the video games have Super Saiyan 4, both GT and Daima versions, it'll say Super Saiyan 4 in parentheses GT and then Super Saiyan 4 in parentheses Daima. I thought they should have called it something like Super Saiyan Primal, but they wanted it to be consistent, so that's fine. Moving on to the next question here. The difference between Dragon Ball Z, GT, and Daima. He says, I've been involved in the franchise since my youth. During DBZ, I was really young. During GT, I was still quite young. And then for Daima, well, I have passed 60 years old now. It's crazy because he was literally in his 20s working on the old shows. So I'm still involved at this age, but despite that, Daima's probably the project where I had to draw the most in the end. And that's interesting because I thought it was GT. He was the lead designer for GT's characters, but I guess it's Daima, and that says something. You know, I feel like people need to maybe understand that Daima was a collaboration between Toriyama, Nakatsuru, and the rest of the writers at Toei. But it feels more reading this interview that Nakatsuru did a lot more work than I think people thought. So moving on to the next question, characters that are difficult to draw. Are there any characters you don't like drawing? He says, characters I don't like drawing? Well, back in the day, I would have said Bulma. That's interesting. But this time in Daima, there's a character called Arinsu, an antagonist. Well, quote, antagonist. So there's this female character that appears. Female characters then, that one was rather difficult for me to draw. So I wonder if it's just a thing where Nakatsuru doesn't feel comfortable drawing female anatomy. Toriyama certainly does. He's been doing that going back to, God, when he was a youth. But I didn't know that. I would have never expected of all the characters that would be the difficult one. So this is the last question here, which is, this is the last let me get it back here. Hold on. So people have been asking for a remake to the original Dragon Ball. Like, we're talking about remaking Dragon Ball and Z, the original manga, starting from scratch. It's been talked about since that first episode of Daima, even before then, but the idea of them, like, you know, taking and redoing it from scratch with, you know, Kubota and modern animators involved. And it says here, if there was a Dragon Ball remake, would you like to participate? He says, if I could contribute something and be useful in some way, I would love to. But if we were to start again from the Dragon Ball manga, perhaps younger people would want to completely readapt it. See, that's interesting. He's kind of passing the baton there. This would probably offer new possibilities. Perhaps younger people would want to completely readapt it. This would probably... Oh, wait. He said this. They wrote the same thing twice. I don't know why. In any case, the original work exists, and from there are multiple ways to create a new series. Since I think it will happen one day, also I think that whether I participated or not, it's not that important. Perhaps what matters most is that everyone can enjoy the franchise for as long as possible, and maybe in a way, some will be inspired by Toriyama Sensei's work, and we could even see a creation that goes beyond even Toriyama Sensei's imagination and still perhaps enjoy it. Now, I want to highlight where he says there were multiple ways to create a new series. I think, look, I'm not sure if he's talking about a new Dragon Ball anime like Daima and Super were new, or if he means a remake like what the question was. But I think based on the question and the fact that he answered it within the body of that question, I think he's talking about a new Dragon Ball readaptation, starting from scratch again, taking the filler out and making it more true to the manga. Not like Kai. I mean, like, actually doing it from scratch and not just recutting it. I think a lot of folks want that. I think someday we will see it. However, I'm not sure if we're going to see it anytime soon. Possibly maybe after the passing of Nozawa, they could create a new series with all new voice actors to play the Goku and everybody else. I do think we're going to get it someday. Maybe not for 30 more years, maybe not for 10 more years. I don't know. I can't predict the future. But one thing I will say is, if there's new Dragon Ball, meaning a new story, whether it be like a super movie or whatever comes next, I do hope that this man is involved because he's been with us since the original series. He's a tremendously talented artist and animator, and he's somebody who was missing for a lot of Dragon Ball Super. He didn't do a lot of Super, but he's center stage here in charge of Daima with Toriyama. And I think art-wise, that's the one thing you can hang your hat on, is that Daima was a success when it comes to the art. So, great interview. I look forward to getting more information. Hopefully, we will get more. But man, the French are lucky. That's all I have for you today. I hope you have a great one, y'all. Take care of yourselves and each other. See you soon.